seats up front as well.
Back there, it's just a, well, there's a cable coming out of there, and the actual transmitter is sitting up on the podium that's right by the wall there. And at the end, they usually just coil it up and put that cable back in that door. Yeah. All right, let's do this.
Hey, is that mic on, or does he have to?
He has to turn it on the bottom. Yeah.
Those of you standing in back of the room, there are seats up here in front. Come on up. If you have an open seat next to you, hold up your hand, please. Those of you standing in back, come on up to find a seat. Good morning. Welcome to the Common Read with José Olivarez. This event is sponsored by the Department of English and World Languages in the Southeastern Writing Center. I'm Dr. David Hanson. Welcome. Welcome to our students here in the Student Union Ballroom and those of you who are streaming the event in your classrooms. Please take out your phones and download this QR code right now. Phones out, and then put your phones away for the remainder, please. The Common Read is organized by the committee headed by our writer-in-residence, Allison Pellegrin, and supported by the Southeastern Writing Center and its staff. We also thank the support of Fanfare, the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and our dean, Dr. Jeff Wright, and the Southeastern Channel. And thank you, students, for your commitment and your interest. We're exhibiting artwork responding to promises of gold, thanks to the students in English 1010 and 1020 classes taught by Sherry Craig, Michelle Knox, Patrick Gibson, and Erica Welter. You'll see that artwork is displayed on the screen in between sessions. We also have a wonderful turnout of students from our dual enrollment classes. We have representatives from Haynes Academy, Desterham, Ben's Ford, Fontainebleau, Springfield High, Ponchatoula, lots of students from Ponchatoula, Young Audiences Charter, East Jefferson, Bonnabelle, French Settlement, Donaldsville, East Ascension, Courtney Christian, and the Louisiana School for the Visually Impaired. Welcome to all of you. And welcome to our dual enrollment students who are streaming in their classrooms. After the event, there are sign-up sheets in the lobby, so if you need to sign up for your class, please go out through these side doors and sign-up sheets there. During the Q&A session, during this session, when you have a question ready, please come up to the microphone here in front and line up so that everyone can hear you and your question is caught online and on TV. An announcement for our next Common Read, which will be for spring 2026, stories in the collection Man of the Banana Trees by Marguerite Scheffer. That'll be on March 23rd on a Monday. José Olivarez is the son of Mexican immigrants. He grew up in Calumet City, Illinois, which is near East Chicago. He attended Harvard University, and he now lives in Jersey City. His first collection of poems, entitled Citizen Illegal, was a finalist for the Penn Gene Stein Book Award and won the 2018 Chicago Review of Books Poetry Prize. His second book of poems, Promises of Gold, Our Common Read, was longlisted for the 2023 National Book Awards. Other honors include the Author and Authors in Justice Award, which is given by the Phillips Brooks House Association, and he was awarded the Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Fellowship. Most importantly of all, José Olivarez is the 2025 Southeastern Louisiana University Department of English and World Languages Common Read author. Welcome.
Yes, indeed. Hello, hello. Uh, oh, wow. Good morning, good morning. My name is José Guadalupe Olivarez. Um, this is great. I feel really honored to be here in southeastern Louisiana. Um, like Dr. Hansen said, I grew up in Calumet City, Illinois, in a neighborhood and went to a public high school where the majority of my classmates were either Mexican American or Black American. And so a lot of my friends growing up, they have their roots down here in Louisiana, in Mississippi. And so to be here, I always think about them and think about the ways that we're related, you know what I mean? And especially just thinking about the ways that people from different places, what's the word I'm looking for? Our experiences sometimes, you know, we get minimized, or people like to tell stories about us that are different from our actual lived experiences, right? Growing up in Calumet City in the south suburbs, not too far from the south side of Chicago, I heard all sorts of stories about how bad we were, how much trouble we were. And of course, you know, there were also stories about the South and how you wanted to avoid it. And now that I've grown up and I've gotten to experience all sorts of places all across this country and all across the world, you know, I know that the truth is that there's beauty everywhere, right? Including Louisiana and Mississippi, including the south side of Chicago, including Omaha, Nebraska. Everywhere you can imagine, there are beautiful groups of people working just to make life beautiful and possible every single day. So I wanted to say that right off the bat because I really do feel honored to be here. But give yourselves one more big round of applause. This first session is the Q&A, and I thought maybe I'd read a few different poems for you just to get us started, and then we'll jump right into questions. I'm really excited to hear your questions and to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Ultimately, everything today is for you, so however I can be of use to you and your classmates, I am here for you. So please don't be shy. Ask whatever questions you want to ask, and I'll do my best to answer them. This first poem is called Ode to Tortillas. There's two ways to be a Mexican writer that we've discovered so far. You can be the Mexican writer who writes about tortillas, or you can be the Mexican writer who writes about croissants instead of the tortillas on their plate. Can you be a Mexican writer if you're allergic to corn? There's two ways to be a Mexican writer that are true and tested. You can write about migration, or you can write about migration. Can you be a Mexican writer if you never migrated, if your family never migrated? There's two ways to be a Mexican writer. You can translate into Spanish, or you can translate from Spanish, or you can refuse to translate altogether. There's only one wound in the Mexican writer's imagination, and it's the wound of the chancla. It's the wound of birria being sold out at the taco truck. It's the wound of too many dolores and not enough dollars. It can be argued that these are all chanclazos. Even death is a chanclazo. There's only one miracle gifted to Mexicans, and it is the miracle of never running out of cheap beer. It's the miracle of never running out of bad jokes. There's infinite ways to eat a tortilla, made in the ancient ways by hand and warmed on a comal, made with corn or with Taco Bell plastic. What about flour tortillas? Flour tortillas count if you ask San Antonio. My people, I am poly with the tortillas. You can eat tortillas with your hands or roll them up and dip them in caldo like my mom does. You can eat them with a fork and knife like my bougie cousins do. What bougie cousins? I made them up for the purpose of this poem. You can eat tortillas in tacos or warmed up by microwave and drizzled with butter. Tortillas con arroz, tortillas con frijoles. Tortillas flipped by hand or tortillas flipped with a spatula. Tortillas with eggs for breakfast. Tortillas fried and sprinkled with sugar for dessert. Hard shell tortillas. Gluten-free tortillas for our mixed family. We are still discovering new ways to fold a tortilla, to cut a tortilla up, to transform a tortilla into new worlds, to feed each other with tortillas. My people, if I have children, I will teach them about tortillas, but I'm sure they'll want McDonald's. All right, I'll read 2 more poems, and then we can get into your questions. This next poem is called Card Declined. It's after a poet named Kim Adonisio. One of the things that is important to my story, right, is not just that my parents were immigrants from Mexico, but you know, my dad worked in a steel mill. My mom was a custodian. And so oftentimes when I live outside of New York City right now, and when I meet other writers in New York that went to prep school, that grew up, you know, much differently from me, it makes it clear what do I want to? I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's not just that my parents are immigrants from Chicago, but it's that we grew up working class, that we grew up poor, that we relied on, you know, among other things, SNAP benefits from time to time. And so I think when you grow up that way, it gives you a different perspective of life. And so anyway, this poem is kind of about that. It's called Card Decline. If you ever overdrafted your bank account on purpose, eaten the penalty so you could eat, if you ever held your breath while swiping, bled your tongue while friends talk stocks, stalked dollar store freezers for discount meals, if you know how to rice and beans your way through a week, a month, ever thrown punches at God, considered stealing, ever followed through, if you jumped turnstiles, styled yourself wealthy despite a price tag, if you know you look good, if you good your way through conversations, if you memorize the questions on food stamp applications, my people, family to my family, if you ever spent your last dollar on a blunt to dull the knife of your own mind, I love you, I can't tell you what's coming. All right, and then this last poem I'll read right now is called Related, The Sky is Dope. This poem is a poem that I didn't actually write. This is a poem that my younger brother, Pedro, sent to me via text message. One of the gifts that poetry has given me is that my brothers who did not grow up reading poetry now will kind of incorporate poetry into their daily routines, right? So my brother Pedro makes it a point to read poetry and will text me sometimes about his discoveries, which is really an incredible thing for me to witness. So this is actually by my brother Pedro. It's called Related, The Sky is Dope. What you been on? I've been trying to read more poems. Poetry is dope. I think about things differently now. Like this morning, the clouds didn't clear up on my drive to work. The sky broke open. And yesterday, the sun didn't go down. The sky drank the last bit of light the day had to offer. Related, the sky is dope. That's a poem, thank you. I love that poem, and I love the idea that a poem can be titled "Related." The sky is dope. So with that, we'll get into your questions. If you have a question, please line up at this microphone, and we will get started.
Can I start? Growing up, have you always wanted to be a writer, and what inspired you?
All right, that's a great question. So growing up, I did not always want to be a writer. My first dream was to be point guard for the Chicago Bulls. And then after 7th grade, I stopped growing. So that was kind of the end of that dream. I started writing in high school. And at the time, I didn't know that I would be writing the rest of my life. But it was something that made me feel powerful. It was something that helped me ask and answer questions about myself and who I wanted to be and where I wanted to belong. And what I found was that when I was studying at the university, I just kept coming back to poetry. It was the thing that caused me the most wonder, that was most intriguing to me. And so that was kind of it. You know, I tried to do many other things. I tried to be a lawyer. I tried to be a teacher myself. And I just kept coming back to poetry every single time. So I tried to avoid it at times. And it's something now that I truly, truly love and can't imagine my life without.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel really short. On this microphone, but how do you feel about the things you write? Do you take pride in it? Do you feel like it helps you get through the day? Like, what is the benefit you get emotionally from the things that you write?
That's a great question. There are many benefits to the things that I write. The first is, so at this point, my writing process is I like to begin writing first thing in the morning. And the reason is that if I finish my writing, then the rest of the day feels kind of like a victory lap. Like I feel like I've accomplished something substantial. I feel a rush when I finish writing a good poem. Like there's this thrill that is kind of unlike anything else. I mean, like I said, I played sports before I got into writing. And so I remember, you know, playing games where it was a close game and like coming up with like a clutch bucket here or there and that feeling of like power and majesty, all of that. That's what it feels like for me when I write a good poem. It's just like a total adrenaline rush. And then the rest of the day, I feel like I can do anything. I feel good. The other emotional benefits is, you know, I grew up raised by men that taught me that what it meant to be manly was to be stoic, that we did not have emotions, that emotions were feminine, that to feel scared was the wrong emotion, that to feel anxious was, you know, not acceptable. And as I grew up, trying to maintain that facade, right, that kind of, that front of like hardness was really debilitating. It takes a lot of work to be that hard and to pretend that everything is cool when it's not. And so to have a space where I could write honestly and dig into my emotions, I think it helps make me a much calmer and chill person in other facets of my life. I think it's taught me how to be more emotionally connected to the people around me. And so the benefits just kind of go on and on. It's helped me find moments of beauty in things where normally I would just kind of not find anything. So for me, it has many benefits beyond just the act of writing poetry itself.
Thank you.
Hey, how y'all doing? I got 4 questions, okay?
All right, will you start by telling us your name?
My name is Malaysia Monique Pettisclove.
Okay,
Yup.
nice to meet you.
Yes.
And then tilt the microphone down a little
Oh,
bit.
okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I'm from Donaldsonville. Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
Okay, my first question is, what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, so I wrote this book during the pandemic, and it was a time when I was living far away from my family, and I was living far away from a lot of my friends. And so the idea was to think about how to write a book celebrating all the different ways that people can love each other. You know, I think growing up, everyone talked about romantic love, and I think in my life, romantic love has been very beautiful, and at the same time, the people that really held me down through the hardest years of my life were my close friends. Like, those were the people that didn't leave no matter what was going on, and my family members. So to write a book celebrating all the different type of loves, that was really the inspiration for the book.
Okay, that's nice. My second question is, how did you feel writing this book?
How did I feel writing this book?
Yes.
There's many emotions when writing a book. You know, when you're in it, there's, like I said, the thrill of finishing a poem. And then when you finish it, there's the anxiety of not knowing how people are going to receive it, or will someone publish it even. And then when you get into the publication process, it's really a lot of joy, because at that point, you get to celebrate all the work that you did to write the book. So it's a lot of different emotions, but yeah.
Yeah, it did seem like you have a lot of emotions, because in the poem, all the names we say, because we don't say love, you were cursing a lot. Why was you cursing a lot?
That's a good
just
question.
curious.
Yeah. I think I curse in some of my poems because, the way I think about it, language is like paint, right? And so just like visual artists use every color they can, sometimes I don't want to limit what words I can or can't use. And so sometimes, you know, that poem that you mentioned is about what me and my friends used to say to each other, when really we were trying to be, you know, those are people that I love, but we weren't necessarily always comfortable saying that, right, as men to other men. And so instead we'd be like, you know, we'd call each other bro, we'd make fun of each other, on and on. And so that's really why I use curse words in that particular poem. But I think I don't try to cuss all the time, I promise.
You forgot one word you said up in there.
Oh, well, I'd have to look. I don't have that poem memorized, but
I got one last.
yeah, go ahead. Next question.
Okay, this is my last one, y'all. Then I could go, okay? So my last one is, if you could make a part 2, what would it be about?
I could make a part 2 for this book.
Yes.
I think for me, I don't know that I would want to make a part 2. I feel like the thing for me about poetry is I wrote this book, I feel good about it, and now I want to do other things. So I have new ideas for poetry books and things that I want to write, but I'm okay for now leaving this as it is. I don't know that I want to make a sequel. I think I love movies, and sometimes I feel like people try to make sequels for movies, and then you kind of look at it and you're like, I was okay with just the first one. I don't know that I needed a sequel. So that's how I feel about this poetry book. I like this book. I really love it. I'm proud of it. I don't think I need a sequel.
Yes, indeed. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Good morning. My name is Jamaya. I'm from Downsonville.
Hi, Jemima.
How did not having money affect your education and life overall? And how did people like Jeff and Erica influence your development?
Not having money, it definitely influenced my education. I mean, I went to public schools. I didn't really have much choice in where I went to school. I went to the neighborhood school. As it turns out, I feel very lucky because even though they were public schools, the teachers all really cared and did their best. And so my teachers always looked out for me and the rest of my classmates and really made sure that, you know, we had what we needed to make it through and encouraged us no matter what. And so I never felt like growing up that, you know, I wouldn't go to college. Especially the other thing is, you know, my parents being from Mexico, they talk to us every day about education and the importance of education. You know, my parents worked. My dad would come home from the steel mills sometimes with, you know, huge cuts and bruises from working in those factories, and he would just tell us like, I don't want you to have to work the way that I work. And so I think having that in the back of my head also kind of always pushed me forward. So I think in a lot of ways it didn't impact me. Now, there were situations when I got to Harvard University where I was totally lost, right? Like, one of the cool things about being at a university is you can study abroad. No one in high school ever talked to me about studying abroad. I didn't know how to take advantage necessarily of all the cool resources that the university had. So I think that was really where I started to see the impact. Like, oh, if you ask for things, people will try and get them for you and help you with your research. So it did and it didn't, if that makes sense. And then in terms of the people that you mentioned, Erica is my wife, and you know she has a huge impact on my life every day. I feel like I'm really thankful for our relationship, and I learned so much from being in a relationship with her and in our marriage. So she's amazing. And then Jeff was a kid in my neighborhood, and I would spend time with him because he was a couple years older than me, and so I thought he was like the coolest person on the planet. And so I think I would pay attention to, you know, the things he wore and like the music that he was listening to, and that helped me form my own sense of like taste and style.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Darian, and I just got a question. Did you ever fix your relationship with your father?
That's a good question. That's a heavy question for like 11 o'clock in the morning.
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I think my dad and I are still working on our relationship. Yeah, I think it's a work in progress. I think he's doing his best, and I think I'm doing my best. It's just hard sometimes still.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good morning. I'm Shaylin Burrow from Donaldsonville High School. Did writing this book help you discover your identity?
I think writing this book helped me discover, I think it helped me discover certain parts of my identity. I mean, I think when I think about my identity in this book, I think it helped me really think about what I want my relationships to be moving forward. And so, like I love being Mexican. That's really important to me. But I knew that when I started writing the book. I think as I was writing it, it made me think about like, and what kind of future do I want to live in for, you know, Mexican Americans as well as the different communities that I'm a part of, and what do I really imagine a life for us to all look like? So I think it helped me kind of answer some of those questions and push that idea forward.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Aviana Williams from Donaldsonville High School. My question is, what was the hardest part about making your book? Well, writing your book.
Yeah. So it's one thing to write one poem, right? And you can get good at writing an individual poem. The hardest part about making a book is you have to learn and figure out how to make the poems talk to each other in a way, right? You want the book to be, at least this is my philosophy, to be more than the sum of its parts, right? So not just to have great poems, but to make a great book. And so I think learning and figuring out how the poems are talking to each other and how to organize them and answer all of those questions, that part is difficult. And then the other thing that's challenging is when you're writing poems, you're not necessarily thinking about how to market them, right? Poetry is not the most commercial form of literature in the world. And so when you get finished writing a book and then you have people asking you questions about how you're going to sell it and what you want to, it becomes a little bit challenging because those aren't necessarily the questions that you start out with. So those are some of the challenges in making a book, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me preface this. I did a project on your poem, Hopeful Cal City. And at the beginning, you say you don't want to write on negativity. You want to bring some kind of positive and like hope whenever you write. And the conclusion is that the end is boring. And the entire poem seems pretty negative. It focuses on like apocalypse, how your hometown declined. But at the end, you're saying that you should that we're never meant to survive and yet we thrive. How do you find hope in situations like that, where it seems like there's nothing there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard, and I think it's something that I struggle in a bunch of the poems where I want to reach for something else, and the reality is the reality, right? Which is that, I wrote the book during the pandemic, and there's just certain things that were literally impossible. I couldn't visit my parents. My dad ended up getting COVID, and we were worried that he was going to die. I mean, he literally passed out in the shower, and that was when we had to take him to the hospital. So there were all sorts of like realities that made reaching for hope feel really hard. And yet I think at the same time, we have to insist on it because the alternative is to just give up. And I refuse to give up. I refuse to believe that what we live in is the best that we can do. I know we can do more, and I know that there's more for us to achieve and grow with one another. So I think that's ultimately the kinds of conclusions that I was coming to in the book, was like, I know it seems impossible, but we have to do this for one another, for ourselves and for one another. We have to insist on hope, even when it seems impossible.
All right, thank you, have a good day.
Hi, my name is Mia. My question was, how long did it take you to write the book? Also, you have a ton of poems in there. How did you know when you were done? And what was the last poem that you wrote?
Those are all great questions. I don't remember what the last poem that I wrote was. So that one I don't know. The oldest poem in the book is Bulls vs. Suns, 1993. I wrote that poem, I think, in 2008 or 2009. And the book was published in 2023. So you're talking about 15 years before that poem made its way into a collection of poems. In terms of the core collection of poems, I probably worked on this book over the course of 3 years, from 2020, well, really 2019 to 2022 is really when the core amount of writing was done. Did I miss any of your questions?
I just said, how did you know when you were
How
done?
did I know when it was finished? I knew it was finished so before I turn a book in, I'll read it front to back. And in a poetry book, there's a couple things that I want, right? One is that I want to feel the emotion in the work. And then two, I want to be able to kind of read it in a single sitting and feel good about the process. One of the things that I love about poetry books is that, I mean, I know this looks pretty chunky, but for the most part, they're like, poems are small beings of literature, and they can transport you a great distance. So I want to see that it feels like something I can read in one sitting. So I'll read it to myself and see how I'm feeling afterwards. So when that goes well, then I feel like the book is in a good place.
All right, and just one more thing. When you get criticism, I mean, I don't know if you really get criticism often, but if you do, does it encourage you to change anything, or does it discourage you, or does that change anything about the way that you write, or is it just a personal thing?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely gotten criticism before, and I'm sure I'll get more criticism in the future. I think sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes I agree. I mean, there are certain things that frustrate me about my own writing, things that feel like roadblocks that I still haven't figured out. And so sometimes it can be helpful to hear that and be like, all right, I'm not just making that up. And so for me, it doesn't necessarily change my relationship to the writing. I'm still proud of it. And at the same time, I'm still trying to grow. And I still feel like the reason I keep writing poems is because I feel like there is more to learn, both about my own writing, but also about reading poetry in general. So for me, it doesn't hurt my feelings, really. It's just a chance to kind of, reflect and then move forward.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Good morning. My name is Luke Veens from Ponchatoula High School. My question, it's not really a question. I just want to understand on page 91, section 7, titled God, the poem specifically Miracle. Do you remember like what made you write that poem, and what do you interpret from that poem?
Yeah, I mean, that poem was inspired by a song. If you remember, if you listen to Chance the Rapper, there's a project he put out with Donnie Trumpet and the Social Experiment. And the first song on that project is called Miracle. And I love that song. And so I was trying to think about how to write a poem that captured that energy. And so for me, that was what inspired it, was that song by Chance.
Okay. And going back to one of the previous people that asked a question about when you wrote it, you said about 2020, like your main was 2020 during the pandemic. And you also related that in the poem, the Miracle poem. And what did that specifically entitle with the poem? Like the coronavirus?
What specifically did that have to do with that poem?
Yes, the coronavirus.
Just the idea that, for me, waking up every day during that particular period, really, every day really did feel like a miracle, because there were just so many questions. So at that time, I was living in New York, not too far from the hospital at Columbia University. And even though you think of New York City as a big, bustling city, our neighborhood was quiet. The only time we heard anything during those days was when the sirens went by with ambulances full of either people that were sick or people that were being transported. There was like a whole city block that was turned into a morgue because they just couldn't find enough room for where to put all the people who were dying. And so that was like my neighborhood. That was where I was living. And so to wake up and still be alive every day really did feel like a miracle.
All right, thank you. That made me understand the poem way more, because when I made a project off of it, and this is probably my favorite in your collection, not to undermine your other pieces, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Wyatt Catronbone. I go to Ponchatoula.
Hey.
And I recently did a project on your poems, and I got to read a lot of them. And I just want to say, I think they're very impactful, and I think they're very good.
Thank you.
My one question is, what was your favorite to write, and what do you think best symbolizes you? Which poem?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me, my favorite to write and the one that best symbolizes me is the poem Let's Get Married. I wrote that poem for one of my best friend's wedding. And sometimes poems can take a long time to write. That poem was fairly quick. It took me just a few hours to kind of get it start to finish. And what I love about it is it just has, I don't know, I think I did a really good job with it. I'm proud of it. Whenever I read it, I feel like the energy in the room changed. So for me, that one's probably my favorite. And then I think it symbolizes me because I think I wrote it for my friends and I wrote it right before my own marriage. So it has all of these different emotions in it, right? I'm writing it for my friends, but I'm also thinking about myself and my wife. So I'm proud of that poem for sure. And the other thing I'll say is a whole bunch of people now use that poem in their own weddings. So I get tagged on Instagram all the time with people using that poem for their proposals or for their wedding ceremonies. So that part is cool.
Thank you. One last question.
Okay.
Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Oh, come on. There's no question in my mind that Michael Jordan would wipe the floor with LeBron James. I'm an old head. I can't say LeBron. I'm not gonna do that.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
My name's Logan McCorn, and I'm from East Central High School.
Yes.
And my questions are, what's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear in life in general? That's another deep question.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to give you a good answer. I think my biggest fear, I think I have a couple of fears, right? One is in relationship to my parents and to my dad specifically, that we will run out of time before we can really make our relationship better than what it is right now. I think that's one of my big fears. And then, yeah, I'll just say that one for now. But yeah, I think that's probably my biggest fear.
Yeah. And my other question is, in your poem, Ode to Tortillas, do you have a specific child or group of children you're relating to at the end when you're saying they'll probably want McDonald's instead of the tortillas?
Yeah. No, I don't have children of my own. It's just a way to kind of think about, we want to pass on tradition to younger people, to the next generation, but also, young people have their own ideas and their own things that they want. And so I remember being a kid, for example, when I was a kid, my family and I would take trips to Mexico from time to time. And one of my younger brothers, Ruben, we'd be at Mexican restaurants in Mexico. We'd have the most incredible foods on the menu, and he'd want a hamburger. And at the time, I would tease him about it, but now I'm like, at the end of the day, you want what you want, and it's not always the kind of classical, traditional thing. So it's not a judgment whatsoever. It's just the reality is everyone has to decide for themselves what they want. And it's not to say that you don't come back around to culture and heritage and traditional things, but it might take you a different time to get there, right? It's not necessarily a straight line, I guess is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Jamal Paul. I go to East Ascension High School. My question is, why did you name your collection Promises of Gold?
Yeah, it's called Promises of Gold because for a number of reasons, right? When the Spanish colonizers were coming to the United States, or not to the United States, but to North America and the Caribbean and South America, what they used to say was their reasons were they were in search of God, gold, and glory, right? So gold was a big motivation for them in coming to the Americas, what we call the Americas now. And so this idea that, so many of us are still looking for our own gold, whether it's literally money and opportunities, or it's to find gold in the world in other ways, right? To find beauty and think about it as our own kind of sort of gold. So part of it is that. And then the other idea is promises are really interesting because they're an attempt, but they don't necessarily reflect a reality, right? And so I called it Promises of Gold because in some ways that's what my parents were in search of, but it's not necessarily always what we received. And I was also thinking about the many places that we can find gold, right? Not just in items and objects, but in each other and in our relationships with one another.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Braylon Navarre, and I'm from Downsville High School. My question is, what does your family think about the poems written about them?
So this book was the first time that my parents were able to read my poems because the book is also published in Spanish, right? If you flip your book, you'll notice that the poems are in Spanish. My mom said that the poems were really beautiful and a little sad, and I think that's probably right. My dad read the book. He didn't tell me what he thought about them, but he didn't disown me either, so I think he thought they were okay, at least. So I think they're all right. And then my brothers are really supportive, so they like the poems for sure.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Sadie Wesley from East Jefferson High School. And my question is, what book or poem inspired you to start writing growing up?
When I started writing, there were a couple of big inspirations. One is the high school that I went to had a poetry slam club. And I didn't know what poetry slam was, but they did a performance in our auditorium for the whole school. And I went, and I wasn't expecting anything. Like I said, I didn't know what it was. And I was just blown away to see like my classmates, people that had lockers next to me, read poems about our neighborhoods, about sex, about things that we weren't given space to talk about really anywhere. Just felt really powerful. It was also the first time that I realized that we could be authors ourselves, that we could be more than just people who read books. We could also write books. So that was an inspiration. And then that led me to looking for poetry in other places. And that's where I found, there used to be a show on HBO called HBO Deaf Poetry. And And there was a poet named Sal Williams that would come on from time to time. And so Sal Williams was a huge inspiration to me. He had books published by MTV Books, so I could find his books in the bookstore and in the library. And so I would read everything I could find by him.
Also, I just want to say, I don't know who thought I was boring, but I thought your poem was great. I thought the whole book was great, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Buenos días, Mr. Olivera. Es un placer tenerlo aquí en Southeastern University. My name is Sarena Rosa, and I'm a high school student at East Jefferson High School in Louisiana. Before I ask, thank you for Promises of Gold. It was an amazing book from the start. Yep. Do you believe poetry has the power to reshape how young people today understand identity?
Bueno, primero, gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. To answer your question, I don't know if poetry has the power to reshape how young people understand identity, but I think that it's a possibility. And I think also I think what I've learned studying poetry, yes, has a lot to do with my identity, but it's also taught me how to observe the world more carefully. And I think whenever you pay close attention to the world, there's a lot you learn about yourself and also just about the kind of pleasure of observing the world, of being in the world and not being distracted. And so for me, poetry feels more important right now maybe than it ever has because there's tons of things always trying to distract us. And so to give yourself the gift of just spending 10 minutes with the poem and asking yourself questions about the language feels really special. And, you know, it might not answer any big questions for you, but I think that time you'll find it to be satisfying. I think you'll find it to be useful. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, gracias.
Hello, I am Mary Murray from East St. John High School.
Yes.
I was wondering, how does it make you feel knowing that so many people have read, loved, and related to your stories?
It makes me feel overwhelmed. It's cool. It's awesome. And at the same time, it's a little bit overwhelming. When I started to write, I thought, you know, my mom would buy a copy of my book. I thought my brothers would buy a copy, and I kind of thought that'd be it. I didn't really care because I really loved writing poems, and it was cool to think that my book might end up in a library next to, you know, Sharon Olds and Mary Oliver, the people whose names kind of are by my own. But to see it kind of continue to resonate feels very special. And yeah, it's a little bit overwhelming at times, but it's cool. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your question.
Hello, I'm Joseph Gocho from East Ascension.
And I'm Javon Matthews from East Ascension. Where did you find your love for writing?
I think for me, part of my love for writing is I loved reading growing up. And when I started writing, part of what I loved is that it's challenging, right? Every poem is different and asks you different questions. You can't approach every single poem the same way because they're each so different. And so the idea that I could spend my life kind of obsessing and pouring into language and craft and still kind of hear different answers and grow and learn and keep moving up. I don't know, that was really exciting to me. I mean, another thing about me is that I'm really into video games, right? And for example, right now I'm playing the new Pokemon game that came out. And part of what I love about Pokemon is there's just always things you can do, right? You can like raise your Pokemon up to level 100, you can catch new ones, you can trade, whatever. And I think there's some of that kind of joy in writing where like, there's always new questions to ask yourself. There's always like more to do and more to grow. So in that way, it kind of feels perfect for me.
And my second question, so in your book, you mix a lot of English and Spanish throughout your writing. What does language mean to you when it comes to expressing your identity and your emotions?
Yeah, so I use different languages when I'm writing for a couple of reasons. One is, as much as we can try to translate language from English to Spanish or back and forth, the reality is that every language and every vernacular has its own particular textures and roots that kind of carry forth into the word. And so the story that I always give is my favorite word in Spanish is the word ojalá. And ojalá is a word that you can kind of translate to hopefully. But ojalá also has roots in Arabic. It comes from inshallah. And when I say ojalá, it still has that kind of texture, those notes of spirituality, of God. And so even though I could translate it to hopefully doesn't have those same kind of notes. And so I turn to Spanish when there's like a particular texture and music that I'm trying to reach. And so for me, it's just an opportunity it's another paint that I can add to like the paints that I paint with.
That's very inspiring. Can you say "Go Big Blue"?
Go Big Blue.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is,
Obviously, Mexican culture is very deeply rooted in Catholicism, but how did growing up impoverished and in two different cultures impact your view on religion and your parents and the way they raised you?
I think Catholicism played a big impact on my writing in ways that I'm still kind of discovering. One of the poems in Promises of Gold is called Mexican Heaven, and that's a poem that I started writing in my first book. And so I think I notice it because even when I'm not trying to, I'll bring up like a Catholic metaphor or a Catholic image, and it makes it clear just how deeply rooted those ideas and those stories are in me. Spirituality is still very important to me, and in particular, the stories that I loved growing up about Catholicism were the stories that were about community and taking care of one another. I always think about like Jesus washing the feet of the women and like caring for them even though they were viewed as less than, right? I think about turning water into wine and just like how festive that is and how celebratory and how we can do that for one another. I think about like the everyday miracle of being able to share a meal with one another. So in those ways, I think Catholicism is still very impactful for me. In terms of like being impoverished and of two cultures, I think that led me to be very quiet and observant because at that time I felt a lot of shame and I didn't want to give myself up. And now I think it's where I learned to really observe and pay attention, right? It was like a safety mechanism at first so that I wouldn't stand out or make it obvious that I was different. But I think it taught me how to pay attention, and that really, I think, had a huge impact on me becoming a writer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I think it's afternoon now. My name is Olivarez Fonseca, and I'm a freshman here at Southeastern. First off, I wanted to thank you for introducing me to a new style of poetry because the only other poetry I've known is like Anglo-Saxon or Old English, and so that's made it poetry such a difficult thing to like understand. And I actually understood what was going on here. As a Mexican American myself, I related to most of your poems in this book. And I found myself picking out my favorites, but the more I read, the more I was going back and forth between which ones I liked more. And so one of my questions for you is there a certain poem that you feel is a current favorite or most relevant to you now than, say, when you first wrote the book or even when you do these sort of talks? Like, is there one that you find yourself more, I guess, that you relate to more now?
Yeah. So part of what I think about poetry is a communal thing, if that makes sense, right? Like as a poet, I begin to write the poem, but ultimately the readers kind of finish the poem and make up their own meanings. And so in that way, there are poems that I love, but that's kind of my own personal relationship to the poems. I think ultimately I'm always more curious about how people are relating to them and what they're picking up on in the poems. To answer your question about a current favorite poem, I mentioned already Let's Get Married.
Mm-hmm.
That one I think will always be a favorite of mine because of the way that it has continued to live outside of my own relationship. The fact that people use it for weddings I think is awesome. And then beyond that poem, though, I think a poem like Ode to Tortillas really kind of reflects the things that I like about literature, right? Which is that I think it's a poem that is at times funny, at times kind of playful, and then ultimately I think is, you know, in my mind, I'm asking some good questions about identity, about what it means to belong in this country. So a poem like that, I think, is also is kind of consistently one of my favorites.
And then my second question, I guess, is more like like a search for advice to some extent. You mentioned how your parents are from Jalisco, mine are as well, and they've always told us, estudia para que no termines así como yo, and it's like, there's a sort of motivational thing aspect to it, but did you ever feel like it was more also like a pressure, something that you couldn't uphold?
I mean, I think of, yeah, for sure, right? To tell them, to hear them talk about el sacrificio and what it means for them to be here and to put that on me and my brothers, of course, there's a ton of pressure there. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, to go back to an earlier question, right? That's probably one of my fears is like, am I doing enough to kind of justify the kinds of sacrifices that they've made in coming to the United States?
Yeah.
I think, so I totally get that question. I think for me, it has been helpful to like go to therapy and to have more conversations with other like first generation people to learn that we are not alone and that ultimately, this is what I come back to, right? Ultimately, my mom doesn't care if I'm a poet, if I'm a janitor, if I'm a lawyer. Ultimately, what my parents want is that I'm happy and okay. And so I think if at the end of the day, you are doing something that makes you happy, you know, you're doing okay in the world, then I think ultimately they will support whatever decisions you make. And so I think that kind of helps give me some sense of peace.
And lastly, very important question, pozole rojo o verde?
Para mí, pozole rojo.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Andrew Tran from Young Audiences Charter School. Woo! As you mentioned before, you've written your book during the pandemic and a little before, correct?
Yeah.
That leads me to my question. 2025 was, to put it lightly, an interesting year for America. Do you think your poems adopted new meanings now than when you first wrote them? If so, what meanings?
Yeah. I've been thinking about it because I wrote a poem in here called Poem Where No One Is Deported. And with everything that's happening in Chicago and federal agents kind of raiding neighborhoods and taking people away, people have been sharing that poem again. And so it's a bittersweet thing, right? Because on one level, it's cool that the poem continues to resonate and have meaning for people. At the same time, I kind of hate that it continues to be relevant and that people are searching for it, need that poem, right? Yeah, I almost wish that I became less relevant, right? I think the reality is when I was writing this book, I didn't imagine that Donald Trump would be president again. I thought we were done with that. And so I was writing the book, not even thinking about that. I was writing the book trying to imagine different realities. And so I think the fact that even without that knowledge, the book still asks good questions of the current day. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know. I don't necessarily think it makes me a good writer or anything, but I think it just goes to show how in this country we continue to cycle around the same questions, and that feels a little bit frustrating.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Robert Cole Jones from Southeastern, aka here. And my question was, what's the longest poem in your book, and how long did it take to make it?
The longest poem, I don't know. I didn't write a ton of long poems for this book.
As in, out of all the poems in the book, which one's the longest?
I think maybe Let's Get Married is the longest, kind of flipping through it. Or actually, it's probably Ode to Tortillas is the longest.
That was 2 whole pages. I know because I did that one.
Yeah. I think that's probably the longest.
It's either that or one of the longest, like top 3.
Yeah. How long did it take me to write that poem? That poem kind of came to me all at once. Some poems are more of a struggle. That poem, I remember exactly where I was when I wrote it. I was having like a writer's retreat with a friend of mine, and we had just finished making breakfast, and I was trying to figure out what to write about, and I realized that, you know, I make it a point to read as much poetry as I can, but I had never really read a poem about tortillas before, even though it's such a staple in my life and in the life of so many people. And so at that point, I was like, I wonder if I can write a poem about tortillas that doesn't feel too corny or ordinary. So, but I wrote that one probably in like 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I put it Hi, my name is Amanda, and I attend Destrehan High School. So personally, I'm half Honduran and I'm half Romanian. So like, I really enjoy like hearing your stories of like feeling stuck in the in between, especially when you say ni de aquí ni de allá.
Yeah.
So like, my question for you is like, what advice do you give to like young people like me and others who are trying to like embrace both sides of their identity?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned, right, is that it's not just us that are caught between two different identities. There's a lot of people that can relate for one reason or another to whether they're like from, they have interracial parents or any kinds of different things can relate to the idea of being stuck between two cultures. For me, what I've learned is I used to be frustrated by the idea of being in between because I was like, then I don't belong in either place really. And what I found is like that one, being in between means that I belong with everyone else kind of in that place, right? And so there's all sorts of people that are diasporic in different ways, that have immigrant parents, that have parents from other places. Any number of things can make people feel caught between identities. And so now I feel like those are my people in a sense, right? And so in that way, I think actually being in the middle is an expansive identity, not a limiting one. But the other thing is, I really took a lot of joy in being able to say, it's not ni de aquí ni de allá, but it's actually I'm both from here and from there, right? Soy de aquí y de allá. Like you don't have to pick and choose your identity. You get to claim as much of it as you want. And so that would be my advice, is like, don't let people deny you your identity, but claim as much of it as really makes you feel full and whole and truly yourself.
And I guess my second question for you is like, as a public speaker for like people, Mexican Americans, I guess, like with the situations going on right now, how do you feel like about it? Like, how do you respond to it? And like, does it affect your writing right now, like in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on a new set of poems, and so it has impacted my writing. And I don't always let it impact my writing because I try not to be, I don't want the terrible things that happen to Mexican Americans, to immigrants, to Latin Americans, to dictate what I do with my writing, right? But right now, it's definitely, it's got me working on a new collection of poems. So we'll see. I mean, when I think about the situation, it makes me frustrated, it makes me angry. I was just in Chicago, and to see how empty some of the neighborhoods feel is deeply angering. Like, it was a beautiful day in Chicago. People should have been outside celebrating and enjoying the last days of like warm weather, and it was pretty empty. So it feels angering to me for sure. But I'm hopeful because people in Chicago are stepping up to try and take care of one another.
Yes, thank you for that response.
Yeah, thank you. This is our last question.
My name is Brayden Hurst from Ponchatoula, and I have two questions, or maybe three. What inspired the cover art for this book? And when doing research on you, I found out that you wanted to be a rapper before you wrote this book. So does music inspire any of your poems or anything?
Yeah, I did want to be a rapper. I'm very bad at rapping. But music's still deeply inspiring to me.
You got a song?
Got a song? Do I have a song?
Yeah, like you can sing right now?
None that you can find. No. When I was writing this book, I was listening to a lot of Bad Bunny, I listened to a lot of Chicago rappers. So there's a rapper named Smino, there's a rapper named Saba, Chance the Rapper I already mentioned, No Name. So those are some of the musicians that impacted me. And then what inspired the cover, my first book also had like a mask element to it, and so I wanted to keep that element so that there was like continuity between the first book and the second book. But also, since the pandemic, I got back into professional wrestling. I watch WWE nowadays, and so to have like a lucha libre mask on the cover felt cool to me.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
How many times are they doing this today?
Dude, you were in front of my camera the whole time.
For real? Are you serious? Yo, my bad.
So this is it? No, there's one in front of the whole thing.
Oh, okay, great. All right, that's what I understood from the agenda they sent me. So
It's mostly a week.
that's fine. I want the kids to get one.
What's up?
Okay, everybody, we're starting our 12:30 event, so if you could please find your seats. Mr. Olivarez will be signing books after the event. So go ahead and find your seats now, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Common Read with José Olivarez. This event is sponsored by the Department of English and World Languages in the Southeastern Writing Center. I'm Dr. David Hanson. Welcome to all of our students here in the Student Union Ballroom, also to students who are streaming in your classrooms. Please take out your phones and picture this QR code and answer the survey that'll come up on your phone. The Common Read is organized by the Committee for the Common Read, headed by our writer in residence, Allison Pellegrin, and it's supported by the Southeastern Writing Center. We thank the support of Fanfare, the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, with our Dean, Dr. Jeff Wright, and the Southeastern Channel. After the reading, we'll be showing artwork that is produced by our students in English 1010 and 1020 in classes taught by Sherry Craig, Michelle Knox, Patrick Gibson, and Erica Welcher. Welcome to our dual enrollment students who are here this morning and also who are streaming it in their classrooms. After the reading, there will be sign-up sheets that are in the lobby. Go out through those doors on the side, please. José Olivarez Is the son of Mexican immigrants. He grew up in Calumet City, Illinois, which is near East Chicago, and he attended Harvard University and now lives in Jersey City. His first collection of poems, entitled Citizen Illegal, was a finalist for the Penn Gene Stein Book Award and won the 2018 Chicago Review of Books Poetry Prize. His second book of poems, Promises of Gold, which is our common read, was longlisted for the 2023 National Book Awards. Other honors include the Author and Artist and Justice Award, given by the Phillips Brooks House Association, and he's awarded also the Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Fellowship. Best of all, José Olivarez is the 2025 Southeastern Louisiana University Department of English and World Languages Common Read author. Welcome to Jose.
All right, hello everybody. So my name is Jose Guadalupe Olivarez. I'll read some poems for all of you, and then what I'll do is I'll transition to the book signing, and then if you still have questions, you can ask me when I'm signing books. I'll try and read a bunch of different poems from the book, as well as maybe a couple new things to give you a sense of what kinds of poems I'm writing right now. And we'll go from there. Some of the poems, or really one of the poems I think I'll read, requires crowd participation, but I'll let you know kind of what your part is and when that is. The first poem that I'll read is called Poem Where No One Is Deported. The poem mentions chisme. If you don't know what chisme is, it's a sacred Mexican tradition of gossip. And I really love chisme. It's one of the things that I missed a lot during the pandemic. I text my friends, I'd be like, you got any chisme for me? And that helped us try and like keep normal a little bit. So this poem is called Poem Where No One Is Deported. Now I like to imagine La Migra running into the sock factory where my mom and her friends worked. It was all women who worked there, women who braided each other's hair during breaks, women who wore rosaries and never had a hair out of place, women who were ready for cameras or for God, who ended all their sentences with, si Dios quiere, as in, the day before the immigration raid, when the rumor of a raid was passed around like bread and the women made plans, si Dios quiere. So when the immigration officers arrived, they found boxes of socks and all the women absent, safe at home. Those officers thought no one was working. They were wrong. The women would say it was God working, and it was God. But the God my mom taught us to fear was vengeful. He might have wet his thumb and wiped La Migra out of this world like a smudge on a mirror. This God was the God that woke me up at 7 a.m. every day for school to let me know there was food in the fridge for me and my brothers. I never asked my mom where the food came from, but she told me anyway. Gracias a Dios. Gracias al Dios de la comida. Gracias al Dios de las mujeres. Gracias al Dios del chisme, who heard all La Migra's plans and whispered them into the right ears to keep our families safe. All right. This next poem I'll read is called Love Poem Beginning with the Yellow Cab. It's on page 15 if you're following along. I love writing love poems, in part because love poems are more difficult than they appear. Like, it's hard to write a poem that feels like a true love poem and is not too cheesy. So I find them challenging, and I like writing them. So I hope you'll dig this one. It's called Love Poem, beginning with the yellow cab, and it's for my wife, Erica. I ask you, what's the first thing you think about when you see the color yellow? And like a real New Yorker, you say yellow cabs, not sunlight, or a yellow ribbon tied around a vase of fresh begonias. Yellow cabs honking down Broadway. I still remember the night we first shared a cab. You whispered honey, whispered lace, whispered chrysanthemum. All that practice, and it turns out I had never ridden in a cab the right way. Around us, the street lights blurred into yellow ribbons, and when you put your hand on my thigh, it was like I knew for the first time why God gave us thighs, why God gave us hands. Maybe God invented yellow for the cabs, so the first time we touched like this, it could be accented in gold. This poem is called United Enemies. It's on page 99. When Dr. Hanson and I were talking, we were talking about the relationship between visual art and poetry. And I love visual art. I think it teaches me to think about the world in different ways. So this poem is called United Enemies. It's after Thomas Schulte, who made these puppets, and one of his sets of puppets were called United Enemies, and that's what the inspiration for this poem was. They were two puppets they had these kinds of ugly expressions on their face, but they were tied to one another, right? So they couldn't separate. They both had to be present near one another. And so this is what I wrote. Those ramen noodle days, it wasn't noodles that kept me alive. Those microwave days, I clung to hunger. Hunger like clay, I molded it. Hunger you might imagine in the style of rappers, but what I shaped wasn't made in the image of riches. That American dream died in the home my parents lost to foreclosure. Its corpse is still rotting in my old bedroom, underneath the posters of Biggie. The hunger that fed me crawled through the block in the lemon yellow Benz. What's dead returns and always uglier. The hunger I fed skimmed the grease off my soup. It survived on the salt of my seasoning packets. Twin of my ugliest truth, that what I wanted more than gold on my chest, more than I wanted my loved ones to live without rent or debt hanging over their necks. What I wanted more than anything, God forgive my ugliness, was to shove boiling hot bowls of instant noodles down the throats of the rich. Those ramen noodle days I ate with 2 mouths, my rage slurping happily what my belly wouldn't touch. This poem is called Perder. Perder means to lose in Spanish. And there's a Vicente Fernandez lyric and a Selena lyric too, but I was listening to Vicente Fernandez when I wrote this. He has a lyric, he goes, yo sé perder, yo sé perder. I know how to lose, I know how to lose, is the literal translation. And so I was listening to that song, and then I was walking down the street, and this poem kind of happened. It's called Perder. Sidewalks lined with branches, flashing scarlet buds, and I want to know if it's true. My grandma in the ground for a couple of years. Is it long enough? Is it her lipstick blushing the blooms of the trees? Or am I trying to forget the only lesson we are required to learn? The first loss is not the last loss, and once the losing begin, it won't stop until it has taken everything. This poem is called Eating Taco Bell with Mexicans. And I wrote this kind of thinking about one of the first times that my wife met my younger brothers, who are like the goofiest people in the world. And I love them deeply. Eating Taco Bell with Mexicans. The day I introduced Erica to my brothers, I warned her. My brothers are extra Mexican. What does that mean, she asked. I repeat, extra Mexican. When we hang out, they talk to her in English and ask her how she can love someone as ugly as me. Do you have bad breath? Are your teeth fake? What's wrong with you? Why do you love our brother? They laugh in Spanish at their own jokes. They play Mario Kart and sing along to Bad Bunny. They say they're broke and blame capitalism. They say they're single and blame capitalism. They say they're in love and blame capitalism. They ask Erica if she's hungry and tell her she's in luck. Erica nods. She kisses me on the cheek in a language that needs no translation. She points at me and says he's the lucky one. My brothers laugh because she speaks their language of dumb jokes. They promise to take her to the bomb Mexican spot. The Mexican spot Mexicans try to keep a community secret. Then they take her to Taco Bell. Like I mentioned during the Q&A, I write a lot about my dad, so this poem is about him. It's called My Sociology. It's on page 88 if you're following along. Remembering from my desk, I want to lighten my dad's shadow, make him neat the way my sociology textbooks describe the working class. Overworked, anxious, and tired. Language like vision gets blurry at a distance. Let me bring you closer. When we heard my dad rip open bills, we knew to stay in our room. If my dad was angry at his bosses, we didn't know. There were no bosses in our house, only us listening to envelopes being ripped and waiting. When I was writing Promises of Gold, I wrote a bunch of sonnets. I like sonnets. Sonnets work for me because they kind of resemble the patterns of spoken word poems, just in miniature. When you're writing poems for performance, it's important that you have kind of a big volta, right? A place where things change, that there's movement, that the poem doesn't feel static. And of course, voltas are important to sonnets as well. So it seemed like a natural connection to try to get into writing poems in form. This poem is called Origin Story, and it tells the story of my mom and dad and how they met. Origin Story. The way my mom tells it, my dad was the most handsome. The way my dad tells it, my dad was the most handsome. One of those boy man philosophers I kicked it with gave me the following advice. No relationship works between man and woman unless the man is more yoked. There's more. My mom says my dad used to throw rocks at her window to get her attention. Remember, this was before cell phones. You couldn't text your crush an emoji. Pedro y Maria didn't even have telephones to argue over who should hang up first. In this story, the boy who is the most handsome boy is a beggar. My dad doesn't tell this story, which means it's true. Amor, ask my mom and she'll tell you. The most romantic words are, por favor, por favor. This poem is called Mercedes Says She Prefers the Word Discoteca to the Word Club. I don't think it needs explanation. I think you'll get it. DJ Cash Era is a DJ in Chicago. If you're ever in Chicago, you could look her up. Give me words that sing. Ojalá is 3 chickens laying brown eggs. Hope has its own music, but it's missing an accordion. My friends are up to their usual shenanigans, drinking good wine and being sad. My friends don't get into trouble. Trouble wears sombreros and calls it a costume. My friends are traviesos y malcriados y sinvergüenzas. Let me translate. DJ Cash Era's making the walls sweat. Slow jams crawl through the speakers and our hips move like someone spilled syrup over the night. Mercedes is right. I'm always down to go to the discoteca, a word that spins on the tongue like a disco ball. Keep your clubs. Cops carry clubs, and in this poem there are no police. Someone spilled syrup over the night. It was us. The moon is a chicken singing, ojalá, ojalá, ojalá. This poem is called Folk. Give me a second to take a sip of water. I think this is another sonnet. What do I want to tell you about this poem? I don't know. I think I'll just read the poem, and you can ask me questions later if you want. This is Folk. I wasn't fluent in this belonging. My folk came from southwest of Mississippi and Alabama. When my classmates said folk, I thought they meant kin, the kind my parents left so I could leave them to go to school. Is all kin a type of exodus? Asked Moses. The heart has a different answer than history. We were in Cal City. The only forks we were throwing up came during food fights. Still, it felt good to belong to more than family, to extend family beyond the house. I said, what up, folk, to everybody, even teachers. Maybe we could redefine kin. I'm saying, I was confused when Darius pulled me in tight during DAP and said, not folk, Mo. More what? Darius was my homie. He sat in front of me in physics. We shared a DAP at the start of class and one before leaving. All right, I'll read a couple more poems and then we'll start the book signing maybe. This poem is called Maybach Music. It has a sample from Paul Wall. If the rich want payment, they can get in line. I'm always going to pay myself first and second. Forgive me, I've been broke. I've been rent due and payday missing. That never stopped me from dancing. hands in the air, bouncing to the bass of my favorite rapper's favorite lies. Let me take that back. I don't know who lies and who tells the truth. But on my tongue, every rap is a lie. Still, I skip the corner store toilet paper for the triple ply deluxe rolls. The rich believe only they deserve soft asses. I was born past due, born in collections. Paul Wall says, open up my mouth and sunlight illuminates the dark. I mouth along, but know this, from my mouth only darkness follows darkness. All right, this poem is called Tradition. It requires crowd participation. So I need you to say A. All right, so when I hold my hand up, you're gonna say A. Is that okay? All right, we'll try it. A. All right. The stories say A. Mexicans grew out of the dirt, A. Same as the cornstalks. A. Of course, we weren't Mexicans back then. A. Whatever we were was lost. A. No, not lost. A. Submerged under empire. A. Died by blood and gunpowder. A. Believe what you want. A. Maybe we grew out of the dirt. A. Maybe agave is our sibling. Maybe mountains are mother. The oldest tradition I know is watching my dad bet money on Mexican boxers, no matter the odds. I don't know about y'all, but I'm the child of loss and the inheritor of losing. I'm not complaining though. I know the tradition. I bet everything I have on my people and dare the universe to beat us. Thank you. Hey! All right, and then I'll read Let's Get Married, and then maybe a couple new poems, and then we'll do the book signing. How are we doing on time? Okay. So this poem is called Let's Get Married. Like I said, this is often my favorite poem in the collection. And I hope it resonates. Let's get married for Allison and Nate on the occasion of their wedding, and always for Erica. Let's get married on a Tuesday with the 6-piece from Harold's as our witness. Let's get married at noon and then again at 3:30 when the school day lets out and a whole block of dandelions flower our ceremony. Let's get married under a full moon and then again under a new moon, so every celestial being can witness our vows. Love, one wedding isn't enough for me. I want to propose again and again. On a Wednesday because you did the dishes. On a Thursday because we woke up next to each other again. Say yes, say less. I'll be on one knee asking you to share in the delight of knowing each other. Let's get married because Chicago, because St. Louis is a city on a map, because your name is my favorite word. Let's get married because there are vows we can only make in the dark, because we don't need a witness to say I do. Let's get married because it's raining, and that's supposed to be good luck. Mi amor, mi cielo, mi vida. Let's get married in every language we can and can't speak, under every God. My God, the way you look at me is a miracle I believe in, because we get one life, one. Say yes, then say yes again. Let's get married after we get married, because underneath every word I write, there is one word I carve into every desk. One word I tag onto every building, on every block of my heart. Marry me, make me, no, not complete, but a little more alive than I've ever been. And I'll read you, I'll close with this poem. I'll read you one new poem. This poem is going to be published in Chicago Magazine. So thank you to them for publishing it. And it's in response to what's happening in Chicago right now. It's called When We Win. The masked agents raid our neighborhoods. What do they cover up? Yesterday is their promise and their charge. On 75th and South Shore, they rammed down our doors using yesterday. They tossed canisters of yesterday into our children's lullabies. Why? My people, we carry today and tomorrow in twin holsters. We plant today and tomorrow in our gardens. Every day there are more sprouts. Let it be known, Chicago will never cower. Yesterday already died. Yesterday is dying. Yesterday will die again. There is no future in yesterday. The agents in our neighborhoods hide their faces because they are losing, because they lost. When we win, there will be whistles from the gulls circling Lake Michigan. Let them sing it. Chicago is a city of today and tomorrow. Chicago is the future. Thank you all so much for listening. All right. So I'm going to sit right here, and then if you like your book signed, you can line up. You can ask questions while you're at it. Thank you again for having me. I'm so excited that I got to spend this morning and afternoon with you.